On this week's episode of The Automated Entrepreneur, the key to prosperity. There was a Mughal emperor, Akbar the Great, who ruled India from 1560 to 1605. He was known for his court, which boasted of holding several learned people from all disciplines. One among those learned people was Birbal. Birbal was Akbar's counselor, advisor, and often played a role of his coach. Birbal wasn't the king. He hadn't won any battles. He didn't know politics better than Akbar. Neither was he a warrior, but he was insightful. He was also willing to challenge the king, to help him overcome his blind spots, to open his eyes to the not-so-obvious, and to help him make wise decisions. On one particularly cold winter in Delhi, when the ponds were all frozen, Akbar asked, "Birbal, will a man do anything for money?" Birbal replied, "Yes, my lord." Akbar then asked Birbal to prove it. "Find me someone who is willing to do anything for money." The next day, Birbal brought a Brahmin to the court. This Brahmin was broke and willing to do anything to earn money for his family. The king told Brahmin, "I will give you 1,000 gold coins if you strip down and stay inside a frozen pond all night." The poor Brahmin was in dire need of the money, and so he agreed to the king's condition. For one whole night, the Brahmin stood still in the pond, naked and shivering. He returned to the court the next day to receive his reward. Akbar was curious. How had the Brahmin managed to stand in the frozen pond the whole night? He asked, "How did you manage to bear such cold?" The Brahmin replied, "I could see a faintly glowing light about a kilometer away, and I just focused on the light instead of thinking about the cold." Akbar was furious. He said, "Brahmin, you have cheated. You were to stand in the cold pond by yourself, and now I see you use the warmth of the light to survive the cold water. You will not be rewarded." The poor Brahmin had no choice and left empty-handed. Birbal saw this tale unfold and decided to intervene in his own ingenious way. The next day, Birbal didn't come to the court. Instead, he sent a messenger to the king, saying that he would come to the court only after cooking his meal. Days went by, and there was still no sign of Birbal. Every day the messenger would come with the same message. "Birbal will come after cooking his meal." The king was not only curious, but a little furious as well. Akbar decided to pay Birbal a visit and see for himself. When Akbar saw Birbal, he was quite surprised. For Birbal had lit a fire and kept the pot of uncooked grains 1 meter away from it. Akbar laughed and said, "Birbal, how silly is this? How will these grains cook with the fire 1 meter away?" Birbal, still waiting on his grains, replied, "Oh, my great king, if it was possible for a person to receive warmth from a light that was a kilometer away, then why can't it be possible for this meal to cook from 1 meter away?" Akbar understood his mistake. He called the poor Brahmin in and rewarded him with double 2,000 gold coins. Birbal wasn't more qualified than Akbar. He had a different understanding of the world than the king, and that is the value that he brought to the table. It simply helped make the king better. If 2020 was a year that slapped you with financial struggle, employment stress, emotional strain, and a sense of bewilderment at your own powerlessness, then you need to ask yourself, have you had enough yet? Have you had enough yet? Listen closely, for here is the key to prosperity in 2021. You must find your own Birbal. There are 7 ways that we may help you. First, I recommend you subscribe now to this podcast, Automated Entrepreneur, on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Breaker, and more. Secondly, follow us on Instagram at The Automated Entrepreneur, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Automated Entrepreneur. Next, why not take 20 minutes and complete our short questionnaire? This easy tool allows us to determine your readiness to create and launch real prosperity this year. Next, you could book a free coaching call to get your questions answered and experience real growth right now. Or you could sign up for our Ignite Bootcamp, our online monthly program where you can actually do it in your pajamas while learning how to eliminate debt, pay off your mortgage in 8 years or less, create passive income, invest in real estate, and much, much more. Visit us at ignitepro.ca. And lastly, you could register for our Prosperity Code program, where you will launch a new business, claim tax deductions, and create passive income. Visit us at join.theprosperitycode.ca. And that's this week's episode of The Automated Entrepreneur.